Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 15. I took a week off last week. I was in Vancouver for an aerial yoga teacher training. It was so much fun, and I had every intention of recording while I was there, but we were staying at an Airbnb, and the people above us were really loud, and I was also exhausted after the training, so I thought I'd take a break from the podcast, give everyone time to catch up on episodes that they needed to catch up on, and then come back this week with a brand new episode for you. And I am excited for this episode. I know I say that a lot, but by this time in the time frame that we're looking at, I knew I wanted to release a podcast. And I specifically remember this day because I was thinking, this is going to be a podcast episode. And now it is, and now I'm releasing it, which is cool. I just pulled out the little black book because I wanted to just mention the time frame of these next few episodes because they're going to be more spaced out than the episodes that we've been experiencing where like 3 episodes happened in 1 week. So this episode happened in March 2019. Let's jump right into it. In episode 10, the group reading test, was when I invited, I think it was 7 or 8 friends over, and I did a kind of test where I had everyone sit in a circle, and I really tested my abilities to see what I could pick up on and see what messages I could deliver to the people sitting around in a circle. So if you recall, I did this test where I invited my 7 friends over, and then that weekend was when I was moving to Banff, and then I moved to Banff and got a new job, and all these things happened, and then Christmas happened, and then I got settled, and then I started a new role. So it was bam, bam, bam. And in the back of my mind, I always was thinking that I wanted to do some kind of a test again. Again, my brain is very logical thinking. So I was just thinking, if I tested it again, I would know for sure. So I was thinking in my head how I could go about planning another test. And I kind of was like, all right, I got around the 10-person mark where I had people come over and it worked. The next step for me would be a 50-person group reading. So I was thinking about doing a 50-person group reading, and I was thinking about where I could do this, how I would host it, who would come, if anyone, would I sell tickets, would it be free, what if nothing happened, all of the same anxieties and worries that I had for my group reading test were all happening again. But when I was doing my Reiki Masters with the woman in Banff, I was telling her about how I wanted to do a 50-person test, and she was saying that I needed to do it and that I should make the steps to do it, make plans, and that of course something would happen, but I would only know how to control it if I tried it. So in my mind, I was thinking about this constantly. And the group of 50 was my rounded number of how many people I wanted there, but in my mind, I wanted 47. I wanted 47 people. I wanted to sell 47 tickets. I wanted to set everything up for 47. That was my number. So at this time, I was doing a lot of yoga, about 5 or 6 days a week of yoga. I also am a big CrossFitter, and I kind of go through phases where I do 6 days of CrossFit or 6 days a week of yoga. So there was this 2-month span. It was in the wintertime, and my body needed yoga, so I was doing about 6 days a week of yoga. And I started to pick up that when I sat close to someone, I would be too sensitive to their energy. So I would always try to put myself in a corner or put myself beside a wall or make sure that the person next to me wasn't too close or put myself in the back row. And I became very conscious about where I sat in yoga class because depending on who was beside me, it would really affect my class. And I didn't really know how to shut that off yet. So there was this one day in class where I was sitting beside this woman and class was pretty busy, so our mats were very close together. And my whole class, I had this awful shoulder pain. I still remember it, her right shoulder. And I was thinking, wow, like I didn't remember being in this much pain before class. And then as the class went on and I saw the woman beside me kind of wincing sometimes, I put two and two together and I realized that it was her shoulder pain that I was picking up. So when we got onto the ground and we were doing some poses where you lay down, and then when we went into Shavasana, and I was just picking up on how sore her shoulder was. So when the class was over, I just had to ask her, I said, "Excuse me, do you have a really, really bad shoulder pain?" And she said, "Yeah, how do you know?" I said, "I've been sitting beside you all of class and my shoulder, I just couldn't get rid of this pain and I realized that it was probably your pain." I said, "I'm a Reiki master and I find it very easy to pick up on people's pains and emotions, and especially when we're this close together in class, and I just wanted to know if it was your pain or not." And she said, "Yeah, I have a really, really bad shoulder. I'm actually getting surgery next week." She's like, "That's so cool that you picked up on it." And I was like, "Yeah, note to self, don't sit beside you again." So things like that were happening in yoga class. So the two stories that I'm going to tell you today are in relation to what happened when I was innocently trying to enjoy a class, but spirit had another agenda. So a lot of the yoga classes that I attend are yin classes or meditation classes or long, stretchy nap time style type of classes. If I wanted to flow, I would just go to CrossFit. I like to go to yoga to stretch and like long, deep, hold this position for 7 minutes kind of stretching, which is why I think I became so sensitive, because if you're laying beside someone in the same position for 5 to 7 minutes at a time, you can really get a sense. And I find that when I am relaxing as I do in a yoga class, my senses kind of open up. Whereas in a normal situation, I'm used to not picking up on people's energy. But when I'm in a more vulnerable situation, I kind of let my walls down. I'm still learning how to do this every day, and it's something I do have to consciously keep in mind, but I've gotten much, much, much better at it than March 2019. So I went to this one class almost every week, and it was a meditation class. And it was like a 15-minute meditation. Then we did asana, and then it was a 15-minute meditation. And it was a yin kind of slower flow. And I came late to this class, I still remember, so I had to sit in the front row, was the only spot where I would have enough room where someone wasn't really close to me. And I had to sit right in front of the teacher, which was fine. I didn't mind when a class we're all only laying down and stretching. I don't mind being in the front row right in front of the teacher, but usually I was in the back corner against a wall. So for the class, I kind of had this nagging feeling that someone had lost their mother. And even though there wasn't someone right beside me, maybe a mat distance away on each side, I had two women. And I thought it was the woman to the left of me. I'm like, I think it's her mother. And if it's not her mother, it might be the teacher's mother. And all of class, now I had this spirit around me where I'm like, it's one of these people's mothers. And I'm going to have to tell them after class now. So I went through this in my head. Should I tell them? Should I not? Should I tell them? Should I not? And I was thinking, well, if it's the lady to the left of me, I don't know her, so I'm not going to tell her. But I kind of know the teacher because I've been coming to her classes every week, enough that she recognizes me. Maybe I could just ask her if that woman's mother has passed away, and maybe she would know. So after class, after I had this mother figure kind of bothering me all of class, I mustered up the courage to go and ask the teacher about who maybe this mother could belong to. So I went up to the teacher and I kind of explained, well, first I introduced myself and I was like, "Hi, I'm Steph. Come to your classes all the time." And she was like, "Yeah, I recognize you. You usually sit in the back corner." And I said, "Oh, could I ask you a question?" And she was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And at the end of her class, she always says, "If you have any questions, like, come ask me." So she 1000% was expecting a question about yoga or the poses or her meditation or something. And I was just like, "Is someone in the class mother passed away?" She was like, what? I said, I'm also a medium and I've been sitting there all class and I just have this mother figure that won't leave me alone. And I'm not sure if it was the woman sitting next to me. I'm not sure if it's you. I'm not sure who it is, but it's someone very close to me. And I don't know if you know if anyone else's mom has passed away. And I got the blank stare and she said, my mom is passed away. And I said, oh, so it is your mom. I was like, I knew it was someone close to me in the room. I said, okay. I was like, well, would you like some messages from her? And she starts to tear up and she says, absolutely. So I said, well, your mom is here and she seemed to be very proud watching you do what you were doing. And she's sitting in a rocking chair and she has a small dog on her lap. And she was like, oh my gosh, she does? She has a dog? And I was like, yeah. I was like, usually I don't channel animals, but she clearly has a dog sitting on her lap. And she's like, wow, when my mom passed away, she had a pet dog, and the dog passed away like 2 months later. Like right after my mom died, the dog died. And we always used to joke and say the dog was going to be with mom because she was so heartbroken that she couldn't live without her. So she's like, it's really nice to know that they're together. And I said, okay, that's really cute. I was like, that's never happened to me before. So then I said, and do you have a sister? And she said, yeah. And I was like, and does your sister have a kid? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay. I'm like, your mom's like kind of acknowledging the kid. And then she's like, yeah, the kid was born right after she died. So my mom never got to meet her. And I said, okay. I was like, your mom wants you to know that she knows about the kid and she knows that you're now doing kind of what you've always been wanting to do. And she said, yeah, my mom kind of wanted me to be a yoga teacher and she used to really support me, but she never got to really see me bloom and blossom in this role. So I said, she's very proud and happy to be kind of sitting in your classes and watching you do what you do. I delivered this little message to her and she was really kind and very open about it. She shed a few tears and I kind of made a joke like, nice to meet you. Like, that's why I usually sit in the corner. And she said that was a beautiful message and she thanked me and I went on my way. So a few weeks later, I'm in her class again. And I set up, I have my position at the back of the room, and the room's not too busy. There's about 7 people in class this time. So, like I said, this class was a 15-minute meditation. Then we did yoga for an hour, and then it was a 15-minute meditation. So it was an hour and a half course. And in the first 15-minute meditation, all I could think about was how I wanted to do a group reading for 50 people. In my mind, I always say 47, but it's easier to say 50. But in my mind, I was like, I need to plan this group reading of 47 people. I need to do a test. I need to find space. I need to rent chairs. I need to invite people. I need someone to help me. I need someone to check guests in. I need a time frame. I need to pick a date. Would Sundays work? Do Fridays work better? In a nighttime? Is this like a noon event? Who would even come? Would anyone come? What if no one came? How do I get 47 people? What if I don't sell? You get the point. So I can't get into meditation because I'm just thinking about the 47-person event that I want to host. And I was sitting there in yoga class with my mat far away from everybody thinking, okay, I'm far enough away from people right now that what if I just pretend that I was reading this room? I don't have to tell anyone the messages, but if I'm going to do a 50-person event, I need to read the room. And right now I'm sitting in a yoga class where I could just read the room. They don't have to know what I'm doing. I'm sitting here silently anyways. So the whole first meditation was completely lost on me because all I was thinking about was how I could read this yoga room and how I could, maybe start to try to pick up messages and what I could do to get messages and all these things. So in my mind, I'm just kind of thinking, I'm opening up to anyone that's in the room. If anyone has a message, if anyone has anyone that's passed away that I could connect with. So I was closing my eyes and thinking about each person in the room and thinking about if maybe they had anyone passed away that they would want to speak to. I was really trying to just send out the vibe that I am an open channel, that I can receive messages, and just really trying to kind of throw the signal out there that I was trying to read this yoga room. And then I did get lost in the yoga practice, so my mind kind of came back to present, and for about 30 minutes, I would say I was very focused on yoga and I was kind of in my little Zen mode. But then I had someone come. He was a man. I'm going to pull out the little black book because I want to say everything that I had wrote down. Okay, he was a man. He was a husband to someone. His name started with a J and it sounded like John, but it wasn't John. It was like a non-English version of John. He died less than 10 years ago. He has a daughter, and he was showing me golfing on this cliff. So as the yoga class is going on, I'm getting more and more information from this John man. So every time we're doing a sit-up pose, or where we're sitting up on our bums, sitting cross-legged, our eyes are always closed in this class, but I try to peek one eye open, and I'm looking around the room thinking who might have a husband that's passed away. And then I try to say, Steph, come back to the present moment, enjoy yoga class, so I close my eyes. But then this John keeps bothering me. So I peek my eyes open again and I look around the room. Who would have a husband that was passed away? And there was this woman sitting in front of me, and I couldn't see her face, but her shoulders were rounded inwards and down, and she just looked a little sad. And I was like, I think it's her. So then I tried to kind of pick up on her energy. It was just, something was off about her. Something was down and droopy, and she just wasn't herself. And I was like, I think it's her. So then we'd move into the next pose, and I'd have to move, and I wouldn't be able to see her. But every time we shifted where I was sitting up where I could actually see her, I would peek my eyes open and kind of look at her. So for the next few times that we did this, I would open my eyes, and I was like, that's my wife. So then I was looking at her. I'm like, that's for sure my wife. I was thinking, when a spirit is coming through, when I look at someone, I think that, so for example, if this woman's husband was trying to come through, when I look at her, I immediately think that's my wife. That's kind of how I confirm who they belong to. Recently, actually, I had a mother figure following me around, and I didn't know who this mother was for. I didn't know who she was for. It had been weeks. I had a client come in for a Reiki appointment that I didn't know. It was like a referral, and she walked in the room, and I thought, that's my daughter. And then immediately I'm like, why, Steph, why are you thinking that? That's not your daughter. And I was like, oh, the mom that's been following me around, that's her daughter. So it's kind of like they take over my brain where I'm like, that's my wife. It's not me saying that. It's the spirit saying that. But I get the same feeling like, oh, that's her. That's her. So by the end of the class, before we get back into the next meditation, I am convinced that the woman in front of me, it's her husband. This is her. I have this information. He's told me all these things. I'm like, my test has worked because now I have information for this woman. But I had too much information where I was thinking, I need to tell her. And then I was thinking, how do I tell her? And then I was thinking, I can't tell her because she's going to think I'm crazy and she's just here for yoga. How do you even start that conversation? So for the last 15-minute meditation of the class, when it was closing, I didn't hear a word the teacher was said. I couldn't tell you anything. All I was thinking about was how I could tell this woman that her husband was trying to come through with a channeled message for her, and how she wasn't going to think I was crazy, and how she would just accept these messages as normal. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking. No way. So I am so eager for us to get out of Shavasana. We're laying there, and we get a nice 10-minute Shavasana, and I love this part. This is my favorite pose. It's my favorite time, but I just keep thinking, I need to tell this woman. How am I going to tell this woman? I'm going to have to tell her. What if she gets up? There's other people in the room. What if they hear? I'm going to have to whisper it. I'm going to have to be quiet. Well, the teacher kind of already knows me, so she might be able to support me. This already happened last week. Oh God, why can't I come to yoga? Why does this always happen? Why can't I just be normal? What if I'm wrong? What if her husband isn't dead? How can I just ask someone if their husband is dead? So Shavasana is over. The teacher says to stand up, close the eyes, hands to heart. My eyes are peeking open at this woman still, closing, peeking open, closing. Finally, we say our namastes. We all bow. I throw my blanket off me the quickest I ever have. And I roll up my mat, fold up my blanket, and the woman was standing near where the bolsters go. So I grab my bolster and I go to put it away because I was like, I'll have a reason to walk towards this woman where maybe we'll casually bump into each other and then start talking about her dead husband. So we had just come out of a meditation, so class is silent. People are putting away all their props very silently. And I walk over to the woman, and the brilliant line that I thought of during the last meditation portion was that I was going to ask this woman if I had a message for her, if she would want it. Because then it would kind of give her the idea of what I was going for, and she could say yes or no. I was giving her the option. So I walked over to her with my brilliant plan in my mind. I hope my sarcasm is coming across in this podcast. And I said, "Hi, my name is Steph." And I was trying to whisper because everybody else was also putting their bolsters away. She said, "Hi, I'm Barbara." I said, "Hi, Barbara. If I had a message for you, would you want it?" She was like, "What?" I was like, "If I had a message for you, would you want it?" And then I realized how dumb this plan was, but I had to keep going with it. And she said, "A message, like on the phone? Did someone call you? Do you have a message for me on your phone? Why would they call you? I don't know you." And I was like, "No, not a message on the phone. Like a message from someone passed away." And she kind of like pulled her head back and looked back at me. And then I said, "Someone who's passed away might have a message for you. Would you want it?" Her eyes go wide and she gives me the look where I know that her husband has passed away in an instant. The eyes that she gave me were, "Whoa." And then I said, "Is your husband passed away?" And she backed her head up even further. She said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "I think he has a message for you, and I think you should sit down." So she was an older woman, and I didn't want her to kind of be shocked or anything, so I asked her to sit down. And we leaned up against the wall in the yoga studio, and I was still trying to whisper because everybody was putting away their props still. So they're putting away their mats and their blankets and their bolsters, and it's a very meditative class, so you have a lot of props with you. So people were taking time to put everything away. So I said, "Has your husband passed away?" She said, "Yes." "How do you know that?" I said, "I'm a medium, and I've been sitting behind you all of class, and he's been telling me a lot for the past hour." She was like, "Oh." I said, "Does his name start with a J, something like John?" She was like, "Yes." And I can't for the life of me remember what his name was, but it was something like John, Naya, No. It was like John, but in a different language, and there was more letters. So she was like, "Yes, his name was this." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Did he die like less than 10 years ago?" She said, "Yes, the 9-year anniversary of his death is on Monday." And I said, "Okay." I'm like, "But does it still feel like brand new to you? Is it still like he just died yesterday? You haven't really accepted that he's gone, even though it's been almost 10 years? It feels like it could have only been a week." She's like, "Yes, I've just been having a really hard time with it." And I was like, "And do you have a daughter?" And she was like, "Yes, how do you know that?" And I was like, "That's kind of all part of the gig here." And I said, "He's showing me that he's golfing. And he's golfing in this red polo. So I don't know if he used to always wear a red polo. But he's golfing in somewhere where there's a cliff." I was like, "There's like this big cliff. And then underneath the cliff, there's water and a beach." And I was doing this hand motion where I was showing the cliff and then kind of trying to describe the beach at the bottom. And her eyes go wide again. And she said, "For half of the year, we spend our time in Palm Springs and we go golfing. And that's where we golf. We golf where there's a cliff. And there's a beach at the bottom. There's a beach at the bottom." And now her energy was starting to pick up. She was getting excited. She wasn't kind of that scared, "Whoa, why are you telling me this?" It was like, "How do you know that?" So then I said, "He wants you to start living your life again. I feel like ever since he passed, your life is kind of put on hold. You don't want to do the things you were doing. You don't want to live life anymore. It's kind of like a big downer. And I totally get it. When you lose someone, it's so hard. But he wants you to enjoy life again. He says, you don't have to be sad for me every day. You don't have to mourn for me every day. You're still alive, and I still want you to have a nice life. I still want you to enjoy it. Enjoy our daughter. Enjoy the trips. Enjoy doing things. You're kind of walking around with this little dark cloud over your head, and I want you to enjoy living your life again." I said, "I think this is a really important message for you to hear, especially if his 9-year anniversary is coming up on Monday. He wants you to kind of let that grief go and keep living and being happy and not feeling guilty about that." And the woman was just staring at me with deer in the headlights, still not understanding how I was knowing any of this information. And she jumped right up and she started to put away all her things, and she said, "Stephanie, I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad I came to this class. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. There's just no way you could know." And then she had this pep in her step, and this was like a class that ended at 9 p.m. And she went to the change room and she got her coat. And then she came back out and she was like, I just can't believe it. I'm gonna have to tell my girlfriends. I'm gonna have to tell my daughter. My girlfriends aren't even gonna believe me. I don't even believe me. How do you know that? There's no way you would know where we go golfing. There's no way you would know his name. How do you know I even have a daughter? There's just no way you could know that. My girlfriends aren't even gonna believe me. Will I even tell them? I'll have to tell them. And it was the cutest thing ever. She hugged me. She was like, can I hug you? She probably hugged me about 8 times. And I think I've talked about in this podcast how I don't like being hugged. I'm a very awkward hugger. Like when you touch me, I'm like, oh, you want a hug? And clients always want a hug after the sessions because it's an intimate thing. I get it. But I'm not the biggest hugger. So it was really funny. I'm hugging the stranger that I just met. And then she goes to the teacher and she's like, you wouldn't believe what Steph just told me. And I kind of said, actually, she does, because last week she was the culprit of the message and her mom came through and she was like, yeah, she's like, it's really beautiful that you're just able to do this in class. And I said, it might be beautiful for the people receiving the messages, but I just want to enjoy a yoga class and not have a spirit come and bother me. So Barbara's off, putting on her jacket, going to the change room, back to us, to the change room, back to us, just ranting about how her friends will never believe her and she can't believe this happened and she's so lucky that she met me. And then I said, because she was getting all excited, I kind of missed some of the things that he was meant to tell her. And I said, oh, and I'm like, he's really showing me his smile, like really big, showing me his smile, showing me his teeth. I'm like, his front teeth are being very prominent in the smile. He's like, like, look at my smile, look at my teeth, like, look at this. I was like, I don't know, was he known for his smile? Was he known for his teeth? They're like, he's really showing me his front teeth and they're like white and everything is good. Like he has this nice smile. And she starts laughing. She said, oh my gosh, he had this one gray tooth and he hated that gray tooth. And she said it was right in the middle of his smile. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess he doesn't have the gray tooth anymore because he's really showing me this bright smile. She's like, there's no way you could know about that gray tooth. There's just no way. Barbara was definitely the most excited person I've ever delivered a message to. If you think about when you see on a TV show and they're talking about mediums and someone's giving a message in like a grocery store and the person's like, no way, oh my God, I don't believe that. How did you know? It was that exact experience. Like I kind of looked around like, is there cameras? Is she punking me? Is this on TV? Because she was just, there's no way you could know that. There's no way you could know that. It was adorable. So anyway, so after I delivered this message to Barbara and she was so receptive and so happy, I started to instantly freak out because, again, I just went up to a stranger and told them a message about someone who has passed away. So I apologized to the yoga teacher for kind of doing it again. And she was like, no, this is beautiful. Like, it's really nice that you can do that. And I just thought, yeah, it is nice, but people come here for yoga. They don't come here for a mediumship reading. And it's a little bit intrusive. And I was just sitting here in this class trying to pretend that I was reading the group. And the good news is it worked. The bad news is I had to tell a stranger who wasn't expecting anything a message again. So again, I ran home and I kind of had a really big panic attack once again, where I just literally ran home, grabbed my yoga mat, ran home. And I just really had to sit down on my bed and breathe and bring myself kind of back to reality of that just happened. And I wrote it down in my little black book, and this is kind of how I knew that I needed to do an event. I needed to do the 47-person event. I knew that people would come. I knew that I could pick up on something now. And I also knew that I needed to start this podcast. And it was kind of the lit my fire moment where I just knew that this was real and it was happening and it wasn't going away, so I needed to do something about it. I will spoiler alert that I have not done my 47-person event yet, but it has been on my mind and I have been given many opportunities to do it. So I have a few friends that own spaces that have offered me to do it. I've had mentors tell me that I need to do it in August, and it's now November. I've had people follow up on the space that I've asked to rent. Like, I've really had a lot of support to do it. I just haven't felt ready yet. So I'm very interested to see when this is going to manifest, because I know it will manifest and I know I will sell those 47 tickets. So those are my stories for you today. I did kind of tear off my yoga 6 days a week after these experiences. It was just too much. I really wanted an hour where it was about me and where I wasn't picking up on other people's energies. So now I'm back on my CrossFit grind, and I love it very much because I don't pick up as much when you're throwing weights around than when you're just laying beside someone for an hour. So yeah, I do have to always protect myself when I do go to a yoga class and just be mindful not to pick up on other people's energies so that I can enjoy the class. And that's another thing that I really liked about the aerial yoga teacher training that I just took in Vancouver was that you're in your silk and you're very much kind of like in a cocoon where it's you and your silk and your mat. And it's very hard to pay attention to other people when you're trying not to fall on your head when you're upside down or when you're trying to really listen to the cues about what the teacher is trying to get you in. It's not just like inhale, raise your arms, exhale, forward fold, inhale, halfway lift. It's like put your left ankle in the silk, turn around to the back of the room, bend your right knee. I'm like right, left, knee, elbow. So I think I'm really going to enjoy doing aerial yoga. I'm going to be teaching it, so it's going to be very exciting things to come. So again, thank you for listening. I'm really happy that you made it this far, and I really appreciate you tuning in. If you like this episode, please rate it and leave a comment. It really helps me out in the podcast world. Share it with a friend. Tell your mom, tell your neighbor, tell the girl at the gym, tell the girl in yoga class to watch out who she sits beside. If you want to follow me on Instagram, @mediuminthemiddle, and I will see you all next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.